All right, Matt, good morning. Hey, everybody. Sitting here with Matt Rizzetta. Well, I'm here. He's in New York. um, but looking forward to talking with you, Matt. You become a good friend. We've had you on Think Business a couple times. I know you're in New York, which is an epicenter, so I do want to kind of touch on that of what's going on in just your world. But also today we're talking brand and communication in today's market. But before we jump in, how are you? How's your family? How's New York?
We're hanging in there. We're staying tough. New York tough.
Yeah.
Everyone's. It's been obviously a very difficult past, I guess, couple months now for the city and for the state. But on the other hand, it's been great to see people come together and really support each other and fight for each other. And it's been humbling in many ways. But
yeah,
we're okay. My family's healthy, thank God. Company's doing well. Everyone has been fully adjusted at this point to the work from home environment, and I've been really proud of my team.
Yeah. It's been beautiful watching people outside their windows applauding every day. I think like at 7 o'clock, I see when the hospitals turn their shifts around in New York. It's been pretty special. Well, myself and my family, we've been sending everybody prayers for speedy recovery for those affected, and just a special prayer for you and all your.
Thank you, John. Appreciate it. How are you doing, by the way? You doing okay? Family's
good.
Right?
I'm in Detroit. It's snowing right now, so April. Okay. Haven't seen snow, but it's we're doing good. My family's healthy and we're doing well.
Thank God.
So let's jump into a little bit some business. You are in your agency is brand communications, and right now, like we actually talked about a couple of weeks ago, but times are a little bit different, but not too much. What should people be thinking right now when it comes to brand communication and what that brand creation is all about? Like, what does that look like today?
Yeah, great question. We've been advising clients to follow 3 principles when it comes to brand communications, particularly externally in terms of how they're communicating externally with customers, how they're putting their brand out there in this environment. And the 3 principles are classy, smart, and fast. Mm-hmm. To see one brand fail, so to speak, that's followed those principles. So when you go about thinking about how your brand should be presented, should be going to market with certain messages in this environment, number 1, do things in a classy way. It's a great opportunity for brands to represent the true integrity of their brand. Number 2 is to do it in a smart, an intellectual way. You can outthink the competition right now. You can lean on great assets you have that can help the public get through this COVID era in a useful, productive way. And the third thing is fast. You don't want to be slow to market. You don't want to be sitting on an idea for too long. You don't want to be indecisive about bringing ideas to market. If you can beat your competitors to the punch with classy, smart content before they bring it to market, you'll get a great head start and competitive edge against them. So those have been the 3 principles that we've advised our clients to follow, and it's yet to fail one of them.
Yeah, I love what you're talking about. I want to dive into fast. I thought I'm going to be 48 this year, but when I was finishing college, I thought I wanted to be the next Larry King or Dan Rather. And so I majored in journalism and economics, and I worked in the newsroom at Channel 7 for 2 semesters as an intern. And one of the things that their 3 things were fast, right, and first. But when you have to move fast, especially during a crisis, and everything, like in the newsroom, everything was a crisis because everything was, had to be real time. How do you prepare, right? So because you still, even though you need to be fast, you still need to be conscious and prep and considerate, and so just kind of walk through that process a little bit.
Yeah, no, it's a great point you bring up, John. By the way, Larry King and Dan Rather have nothing on you, so I just want to say that.
Well, thanks, man. I appreciate that. Yeah, most of the people, I would say 50% of the people who see this, hear this, watch this, etc., don't even know who I'm talking about.
I do.
Oh, thank you.
No, great question. I would say when it comes to thinking about speed to market in this environment, this underscores exactly what you just said. I think the most important thing is you need really strong processes and rigor in place.
Yeah.
Like with my team, for example, we used to meet weekly with my direct reports. In this environment, we're meeting daily. We're scrutinizing our go-to-market strategy, budgets, marketing, everything is being done in time compression, quicker, on a more frequent basis with speed in mind, because this way we can make decisions quicker. We can then bring them to market quicker and beat our competitors to the punch. So the first thing I would say when I think about speed in this environment is really think through your current processes and just try to compress time, err on the side of being more frequent, being quicker, meeting more regularly, and also being more decisive. I think you don't want to, once you've went through those checks and balances and went through those processes, you don't want to overthink things. You don't want to spend time, thinking about whether or not once the decision's been made, bring it to market and go for it. Right. And those are the two things I think you need to balance in this environment to get things done expediently.
Let's talk about that, because I think what you're saying is so interesting. And I think companies are starting to feel this, for so many years, companies tried to figure out how can we work remotely? How can we, do what we're doing now, but not in a pandemic or a crisis. Everybody in the world had about a week to prep. And then, and I'm seeing kind of, we're 4 weeks into this, people are starting to kind of get the hang of it. It's starting to feel somewhat normal. But it begs the question, do we spend too much time deliberating, certain things? Because right now we have to do things in a compressed way. We have to do it compressed. We have to be decisive. We have to make decisions. But where I think the difference is, because we're in a crisis, people are moving from their heart more than they're moving from their brain. And so as we come out of this, will we see more compression, decisiveness, and more heart-led brand communications is my question.
Yeah, I mean, look, I hope the answer is yes. I know certainly our company is going to do our best to practice that and advise our clients too. I think the most important thing right now, look, we could all be more efficient with our time, Jon. I mean, as companies, as corporate leaders, as professionals, we can all be much more efficient with our time. I think the silver lining in this crazy world we're living in right now is that it's sort of forcing us to be more efficient with our time.
Right.
And the ones who are going to become more productive because they're being forced to be more efficient with their time are going to come out on the other end of this healthier and stronger than before. My hope is that that's a practice that continues and actually gets progressively better as we emerge on the other side of COVID. But I think, look, we could always be more efficient with our time. In fact, in most environments, we're not forced to. So we have the luxury of being a little bit less efficient. We don't have that luxury in this environment. So I think that's a good thing, if anything.
Yeah. So when it comes to, thanks for that. So let's talk about brand communications a little bit more, because that's where you really, a big focus of yours, brand value. What is your brand? Let's talk about kind of, people being comfortable what their brand is and what they're doing right now. If they didn't really understand what their brand was or their messaging, right? Because right now, like you're talking about, you got to make quick decisions, you got to compress. And part of a brand is when a consumer can decide quickly if they want to utilize that brand. So whether it's a product, a service, a company, it doesn't matter. So what do companies do who don't have a solid brand and realize it now that we're in a crisis?
Well, I think the first thing you have to do is you need to think about your brand in this environment, Jon, with a purpose first message, as opposed to a product first message.
Well said, yeah.
This environment, consumers really want to to connect with brands on a more intimate, empathy-driven, main level than before. So if I'm making decisions on behalf of a brand right now, I'm thinking about that. Your brand stands for something. It stands for something purposeful. It stands for something more than just a product, right? And this is an environment where that needs to be practiced and brought to market more so than ever before. So if you're a brand leader listening, to this, to our chat right now, I would be thinking about, look, what are the true values my brand stands for? What is the purpose of my brand? And how can I communicate that to my customers or my target customers in a way that helps them get through this, and it's sort of an EQ first approach, as opposed to my product. The product is always there. Everyone has a product to sell, but this is not the time to sell a product. This is a time to show the purpose behind your brand in a way that brings everybody together.
Yeah, I love that. And I think times like this show the companies that have the value, who are living the values that are on their wall, and those that are not living the values on their wall. And what I think, I think sometimes a lot of people discount the importance of a brand. But when you think of things, I'll just use big names like Nike, right? I mean, everybody feels great. Well, I shouldn't say everybody, but most people feel great. I had an English teacher in 10th grade, Mr. Gerhardt, who always used to say, never say everybody. So that's what but most people, feel great about it. So there's such a connection to the brand. So my question is, how do you then manage the growth? How do you then manage your brand once you have a brand?
Well, look, I think the most important thing is in this environment, first off, Jon, just to take a step back, this environment has created an opportunity for smaller, challenger brands, if you will, that have typically lived on the outside of industries to really take a front row, in this environment, a front row seat in this environment. And I think that that's interesting. You look at small, nimble companies that typically are on the outskirts of their industry. This is a time where they can be front and center and they can really be an agent for change. And if they outthink their competition, their brand can take a major step forward in this environment. Those are the sort of things I'm thinking about right now if I'm running a brand that historically has been a challenger brand or has been second or third to market. With smart ideas, with purposeful messaging, with speed to market where they're beating their competitors, they can leapfrog the competitors in a way that they never did in a previous environment. So I would use this environment as an opportunity to gain a competitive edge. That's not necessarily the case in most environments.
Yeah. Well, and what you're talking about, and I agree with you. And some people may be listening to this saying like, so many people have been furloughed and so many this is the time to cut expenses. When really this is a good time to actually double down and invest in your people and your company, because not everybody, again, here I'm like catching myself, but most people are looking at how can I retool and innovate now and then come out of this a more innovative company.
Yeah, you're right. And look, it's a fascinating time for business leaders. And I know the context of this conversation is about brand communications and marketing, but business leaders right now, for me, running a company, this is fascinating. You're trying to manage on defense and offense at the same time. On defense, obviously you have a fiduciary responsibility as a business leader, preserve cash, protect jobs, manage from a position of defense where you need to protect your interests. But then also once you've done that, there's great opportunity out there and you should manage a little bit offensively as well. Look for M&A opportunities. There's great talent that are sitting out on the market that otherwise wouldn't be available that you could take advantage of. There's ways to add capabilities to your company that you otherwise wouldn't have been able to add. So it's a fascinating time. And to your point, I think the businesses that are going to win in the long run are the ones that use this environment as an opportunity to play 50% offense, 50% defense. And look, you can't just hide under a rock. You should be out there showing your face, playing offense, taking calculated risks, being smart, of course, but taking calculated risks, and you'll emerge stronger. And I think it's a fascinating time for business leaders.
Yeah, no, I agree. Let's talk about you as a business owner through this. A lot of business owners are, they have 10 minutes of thinking positively, 30 seconds of worry, 15 seconds of panic, and then getting back to center and getting into alignment and kind of, marching forward. So how are you getting back to center? How are you leading your team, as a business owner and also just being a human being in general?
Well, I think the last part is the most important thing.
Yeah.
This is a time where empathy, as it relates to your employees, I think this is a time where empathy is the most important word in the dictionary for any business leader. I think that employees need to see you as a business leader as a human being. And these are unprecedented times. The truth is nobody has the answers. Right. And I think employees just want to see that you have their best interests at heart. You're doing the best job you possibly can. You're being transparent with them. And those are, that's basically what we've been trying to do in terms of how we're communicating with our own employees. We're also very diligent. We went into this whole COVID preparedness planning about, close to 2 months ago now. And we've just tried to be one step ahead, prepare for worst case, best case, most likely case scenarios. You need a solid process and rigor in place where you're revisiting those numbers and your plans on a weekly and daily basis. And then ultimately you're communicating those plans to your employees on somewhat of a frequent basis so they understand what's going on with the company. The businesses that are failing right now primarily are the ones who are not being transparent. They're being more reactive than proactive. They don't have strong processes or infrastructure in place. So we're just trying to do the best job we can to operate with diligence and rigor and in an environment that really is, very challenging to do those things.
Yeah, I agree with you. Empathy is key, effective communication, keeping the vision of where the company is going, because this too shall pass, and we want to keep something. We don't want to talk only about the day to day, but where we're going. We don't want people to forget that. And forgiveness, because people are going to make mistakes. Everybody's kind of going through this. But I agree with you. It's kind of like nobody has the answers, but here's the answer right now, right? Yeah. It's kind of like, this is where we are today, and that could completely change tomorrow. And just infusing great leadership of consistent communication, like you're talking about, is key. I'm seeing the same things with companies.
Yeah, we talked about time compression earlier too. I actually that applies to this conversation as well. We used to do, for example, with my CEO direct reports, we would meet weekly before. In this environment, we're meeting daily to review our plans. Yeah. With staff, we used to have quarterly all hands sessions where we would take questions. We'd provide a status update on the business. In this environment, we're doing that monthly. And then weekly, we're also having meetings with our mid-level managers, whereas in the old days that used to be done monthly. So I think frequency of communication, I think time compression, transparency, all of those traits, that's the name of the game right now.
Yeah, absolutely. How are you? I've been talking to a lot of companies. I've been doing a lot of workshops for companies on for their entire companies on how to take care of themselves during this, because I think it's really important, and I'm seeing it's really important that people have routines. It's important that people make space for themselves, because even though we have more time, we have less personal time. We're not driving to Starbucks or in between meetings. And so how are you advising as a leader your team to really take care of themselves?
Well, I think the most important thing that starts with, I can just speak from a personal level. I think we talked about this too, John, a couple of weeks ago. This shelter in place order has enabled us an opportunity to spend more time with our loved ones, right? So the more time we spend with our loved ones, the better the more impact that has in a positive way on our daily routine, on the way we work, on the way we collaborate with our teammates in this virtual workforce. So that's the first thing I would say is, if you're talking to coworkers, you're talking to employees, use this as an opportunity to spend more time with the people you love, take care of your body, take care of your mind, take care of your spirit. There's more downtime to do those things. And that usually will have a spillover effect to your work product. And those things tend to be intertwined. So that's the first thing I would advise anybody who's working on a work team in this environment to do.
Yeah, it's great. Let me ask you this, Matt. We've talked a bunch, and I love how forward thinking you are. What does maybe business in general, but what does your business look like post all of this, where, with flexibility of people working remotely, working from home? I think companies are going to start to see, you know what, I don't need you to come into my office. I can actually hire the best person for the job, and they may be in, North Dakota or Rhode Island or wherever in the world, and using video, which people are getting more comfortable with, not be confined to just having people in their office. So what's your assumption that, the workplace is going to look like?
Well, we were very fortunate at N6A. We had an unlimited work from home benefit that we provided to our employees for the past several years. So we were sort of
That's right. Yeah.
operating in this virtual workforce before COVID. It was never to the extent that it is now. I mean, we always had a live and vibrant, lively and vibrant experience in the office, but we always had a lot of employees, on any given day, figure between 20 and 30% of our workforce. Our employees were working from home. So we were sort of used to operating in this environment through Zoom and through video conferencing and through Slack. I think what the world looks like when we all get back to, the office, Nobody really knows, John, to be honest. I think the one thing that we're going to do is, you talk about when the world returns to normal. We're going into as a management team and at a boardroom level, we're adopting the following philosophy where we plan annually, we budget monthly, and we revise daily. And I think
wait, say that again. I love that because I say that in different words, but I love the way that you say that again.
Yeah, you plan annually. I think you budget monthly and you revise daily. And I think that this environment has conditioned us as business leaders to think that way. So let me explain. On our side, we are planning today based on how we want our company to look a year from now. That's where plan annually comes in. We are budgeting monthly because you can't budget annually. You can't budget quarterly, frankly, even in this environment because it's moving so quickly. So you budget monthly. But then the goalposts continue to move on a daily basis. So you need to be prepared to revise that plan on a daily basis. And I think, to answer your question, I think that's one thing that's going to carry through even after we get out of this environment. I think all businesses should think that way. I think they should continue to plan annually. I think they should budget monthly. They want to probably reduce the frequency or compress time on their budget and preparedness plans. And I think they're going to want to revise things on a more frequent basis. Look, it might not be daily after we get out of this. It might be weekly. But the point is that it should just happen more frequently.
Well, I agree with you. The way I say it is, plan yearly, reverse engineer to the quarter, to the 30 days, to the week, and to the day. And your business plan should be a living document that you look at every morning and every night, and you adjust it for the next day, which could change everything. But I love the way you articulate it. You should make a social icon to promote with your company because it's so succinct the way that you put it. I love that. All right, so we're coming up on 12/23. Tell everybody a little bit just about your company and what you do. You do such great work. Just so they can kind of have a flavor of you and what you guys do as a whole company.
Sure. So N6A, we're a public relations agency that's focused on using PR to drive business outcomes. So we basically transformed the legacy PR category by tying specific PR events with business outcomes. We specialize in 6 different types of business outcomes, John, for our clients: revenue, recruiting, M&A events, IPO events, capital raise events, and competitive events. And through PR, we then amplify it with demand gen. We have a demand gen team in-house that actually goes out and runs campaigns to amplify PR assets, ultimately to drive business outcomes and leads for our clients in any one of those 6 categories that they're interested in. We've been in business for 10 years. We're based in New York City. We have about 50 clients across almost 25 different industries. And we also have done, I would say at this point, probably close to 200 transactional events on behalf of our clients, whether they're capital raise, revenue outcomes, recruiting outcomes, any of the outcomes I mentioned earlier.
Right. Well, I can't thank you enough. How can people get a hold of you if they want to connect with you?
Well, check us out. N6A.com is our homepage. We're obviously, especially in this environment, we're putting a lot of content out. Check us out on LinkedIn. We have a whole host of educational content and video series that we're putting out. We're doing about 1 or 2 webinars on a monthly basis that are thought leadership webinars, best practices, and how to communicate and market your brand in this environment. So you can go to LinkedIn to find out more about when and where we're going to be putting out the next wave of content.
Great. Well, I echo that. Now is a great time to double down on content that is value add to help people, as many people as you can. Matt, always great to connect with you. I always learn a ton every time we do. Thank you very much for being on the live. Those are my dogs in the background, but this is real life. And we'll connect soon, but I appreciate you taking time, and thanks for sharing your wisdom, and all the best to you and your family and everybody in New York.
Same to you, John. You're like family at this point, so anytime.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks,
all right,
man.
take care.
Appreciate it. Talk
You
to you.
too. Be good. You too.